Welcome to the Turkey Hunter Podcast with me, your host, Andy Galliano. In this podcast, I share with turkey hunters just like you how to have more turkeys on your hunting property and how to have more successful turkey hunts. I teach you how to do this with tips and interviews with turkey hunting pros, wildlife management tips, and entertaining turkey hunting stories. Tune in weekly as I share proven and simple strategies to help you have more success this turkey season. Make sure to head over to www.iamturkeyhunting.com to subscribe to receive free turkey hunting tips, tactics, strategies, and product reviews. Also, please visit and like my Facebook fan page. Go to Facebook and search I Am Turkey Hunting, and also feel free to post your turkey hunting photos from this past season and let us know where and when you killed your bird. For all of you Twitter users out there, please follow me on Twitter, where my handle is @TurkeyHitman, and I will be sure to follow you back. And now, for this week's show. Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of the Turkey Hunter Podcast. You are listening to episode 121, Advanced Trapping Sets for Wild Turkey Predators with Trent Masterson, Part 2. And I am your host, and the guy who today was reminded of an awesome hunt from last season. And if you haven't seen it already, I don't want to spoil it, but you can actually watch the hunt. So go to my Facebook fan page, that is facebook.com/IamTurkeyHunting, and I've posted a video on there from my hunt with Corey New and Jim Lieben with the Turkeyologists. I think you may enjoy that one. One of the reasons that I got excited about that hunt is because it reminded me that that was the day after opening day of spring turkey season in Alabama last year. And right now, today, we are 27 days, 10 hours, 39 minutes, and 8 seconds away from opening day of spring turkey season in Alabama. We are now under 1 month. Opening day in Alabama starts in 4 weeks. 4 weeks from today, I will be turkey hunting. All right, I have a quickie intro and outro for you guys today as we are steady preparing for the NWTF convention and putting the finishing touches on a few things. Last minute, of course, because that's how I roll. So today on the show, I have part 2 of my interview with Trent Masterson with some advanced trapping sets for wild turkey predators. If you missed last week's episode, then be sure to go back and listen to it, as we talk mainly about trapping nest predators. And this week, we're talking about poult and adult turkey predators, and we discuss the best ways to dispatch those animals that we do trap. Okay, so instead of me telling you all about the interview, why don't I just let you listen to it, and I'll see you guys on the other side. So let's talk about some bigger predators, and the ones that I think that when most people think of being a predator of a mature turkey or a poult, they're thinking of these, but coyotes.
Yeah.
A lot.
And I'll be
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. I think the coyote, as far as a turkey killer, although they do kill turkeys, because I'm sure a lot of the audience out there listening to this has called coyotes in with a turkey call.
Absolutely.
They're not the best turkey predator out there. Most turkeys get away from them. Big toms will turn and fight them. They're not the best. Now, bobcats, on the other hand, they're very effective turkey predators, ambush predators. Now, coyotes, I think it's starting to come to light with some of the studies that have been done in the South, how effective fawn predators coyotes are. They can really drastically lower the fawn production on a place. Coyotes can devastate the deer populations, and especially these eastern coyotes we have now, as big as they are and effective predators they are. But when it comes to talking about turkeys, bobcats are, keeping your bobcat population under control for adult turkeys. The studies that I researched going back to that was man is the number 1 adult turkey predator. Bobcats are number 2 turkey predator.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I think as far as a turkey predator, coyotes kind of get a bad rep sometimes, even though I do know they, we've all called them in,
sure,
just with a few yelps and clucks. They tackle our decoys, and it's kind of part of it.
Yeah, and I have called in both coyotes and bobcats, and I would say I have called in more coyotes than bobcats. I think,
Okay.
to me, I kind of think the coyote is on the hunt 24/7, whereas a bobcat is probably not. I think a coyote could probably go from a dead nap to being on a hunt in a fraction of a
Yeah,
second.
exactly. Yeah,
So
I
that's
agree.
probably why we see, or at least I see, a lot more coyotes than bobcats when I'm calling in
Yeah.
more coyotes. So I want to hit on bobcats too, but let's talk about coyotes. And you are
Mhm.
100% correct. It's amazing the number, or at least what I've been told, the people who have set up game cameras at a coyote den entrance. It's amazing at the number of fawns
Yeah.
that a coyote will bring into the den to feed pups.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen any of those stats or any of that information online, get out there and look at it. It'll blow your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. They're deadly effective fawn predators.
Yeah. And
Very much.
so, just like I said when we started this, we're not just helping out turkeys, we're helping out everything by getting rid of these critters. So, let's talk
Right.
about some coyotes, and
Okay.
let's talk bait, let's talk sets, and then let's get into some advanced sets on coyotes because, I think
Okay.
they can get pretty wary when it comes to trapping.
hmm Okay. Basic sets for coyotes would be the number one and number two dirt hole set. Number one, there are variations of a dirt hole set. Who invented it? I have no idea, but it's been successfully used for hundreds of years. Since
Hmm.
trappers have been trapping in North America. Dig a hole in the ground, set a trap in front of the hole, and guys will tell you, one guy will tell you to dig your hole on to dig a 1 inch diameter hole, to use a steel rod to poke a small tiny mouse hole, to a little, like a little wobble hole. Some guy will say to dig a 1 inch hole. Some guy will say a 2 inch hole. Some guy will say a 4 inch hole. All of them catch coyotes.
Yeah.
Some of them will say dig it vertical into the ground. Some will say no on a 30 degree, and no on a 45 degree, no flat even with the ground. All those situations, all those guys catch coyotes. They're not telling you that because they don't catch coyotes. They're just saying that that's what worked for them. So starting with that, what every one of those sets, regardless of the whole size, the whole angle, if you're going to consistently catch coyotes, I would say that hands down number one thing you need to learn is to bed your trap in a way that it fires every time an animal steps on it,
Hmm.
and make sure your trap is in perfect working order. So when an animal steps on it, it fires and it holds the animal. And then bed your trap solid. And what I mean solid is when you put it in the ground in front of the hole, that the trap, if the animal were to step on the lever, the jaw, any place but the pan, that the trap doesn't wobble under his feet.
Right.
Now, I don't believe that the coyote, when he steps on that, knows that it's a trap. He just believes whatever was dug out of that hole is now buried under the ground in front of the hole and was packed down. And so now he's going to start working at the trap instead of working what's in the hole. And what you're going to end up with is an exposed trap pulled to the side, and then your bait and lure, whatever's in your hole, is going to be gone out of your hole because he steps on that. It wobbles under his feet. He pushes it out of the way. Maybe he trips
Hmm.
it. Maybe he pulls it to the side. Maybe he rolls in it because there's some type of a foreign odor on it. But it all started with that trap not being solid in the ground. And it takes practice. It takes technique. And the second set would be a flat set, which basically would be some type of an object in front of a trap. It can be a taller object, a shorter object. Your trap couldn't be back tight to the object. It can be back 9 and off 3, back 7 and off 4. You're going to hear people say all these different things. Every one of them probably caught coyotes in their sets. Again, the biggest thing with that is make sure when that coyote walks up to that trap, he doesn't, when he steps on it, not on the pan or not the kill area, that the trap doesn't wiggle, doesn't move. I
Hmm.
believe if you have enough animals visit it, or that lure or whatever attractor is on that object that's in front of the trap, whether it be a log, a rock, a bone, piece of bone, a tuft of grass, whatever it is you're making the set on, if it's a good enough attractor to the animal, he pads around enough, sooner or later he's going to step in it. But if he pads around enough, sooner he's going to step on the jaw and the lever and every other part of your trap prior to hitting the pan, if he
Yeah.
doesn't just come right in and step on the pan. So that is, in either of those sets, the most important thing to learn is to learn to bed that trap solid. If I was going to tell anybody that's getting into this, if just like shooting your bow and arrow, just like shooting your rifle and sighting it in, if you're going to go out and trap, you don't just take your trap out of your barn and walk out in the woods and put the trap in the ground and hope it works. I would suggest guys go out and practice bedding your trap solid. And when you're done and you've sifted it over and you've blended your trap, push on that trap in every different location. Have a buddy, you have him make a set and you make a set. Him try to make your trap tip or wobble. And if you're new to this, that's something that would help you leaps and bounds the next time you go coyote trapping. If you can figure out a way to get that trap in the ground solid and no tip or wobble. And the other thing is, like I talked earlier that all will lead into other things. When I talked earlier about catching a lot of fur as a full-time fur trapper, is the speed. So the more you do it, the better you get at it, the faster you get it, the more traps you can get in the ground in a day, and the more animals you're going to catch. It just works in a ratio of numbers. So if you're faster at getting more sets out because you're faster at getting a trap bedded in solid in the ground and you're confident with that, you're going to be able to put in 2 sets instead of 1 at that location and move on down to the next location and get, 50 traps in a day instead of 20 traps in a day.
Yeah.
So that practicing that bedding, I guess maybe to get into more of that, there are methods, and I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name right now, but there was, I saw the first time I ever saw something called power bedding. It was in a demo in, I think, Ohio at the national convention. And he used a dowel and some nails to actually, once he put the trap in the bed, he used the nails and a dowel to secure the trap into the ground, regardless of what was under the trap. If it was soft or rocky or whatever, he could use these small pegs to hold his trap in place to make it really solid. Since I've went to using barn spikes, 3 barn spikes.
Yeah.
And if I have really hard ground, I can take parts of the trap that are non-moving parts. There's spring pins. There's the base frame where it comes up and holds the dog of the trap, or the base frame itself, where you can actually run a nail in long ways, into the ground to the side of that and use the head of the nail to hold the trap solid in the bed. That's one of the easiest, simplest ways if you're a novice to learn to bed a trap solid. It's slower, to get your trap solid that way than to just use the, dirt or whatever is around the site to make that trap solid. It's quicker and you have to carry nails with you. But if you're new to it and it's something that you want to, if you're going to master one thing about it in canine trapping, that's one thing you really need to master. Once you get past that point, then you can then start worrying about offsetting your trap straight in front of the attractor, all these different nuances that go into making these sets more effective.
Yeah. Okay. So, obviously that's important because it doesn't matter what you're using as bait. It doesn't matter what kind of trap you're using. If your trap's not in good working order and if it's pushed aside by the animal, it's not going to do you any good at all. So
exactly.
From that point, once you kind of got that mastered and you're ready to go, what are you looking at using for bait? And I remember from our first conversation about trapping, from our first interview, that you told me that anytime you walk past coyote dung, coyote scat in the woods, that you grab that, put it in a bag, and you'll use that in a trap set.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's brilliant. I never even thought about that, but I don't trap.
That is a fantastic attractor. And usually what I'll try to do is keep them separate if I possibly can. Like usually from one ranch or one farm, use the droppings from that farm at a different farm and vice versa. So I'm basically introducing the stranger into that farm. And now that kind of leads in more toward the tough to catch type coyotes. And adding one of those droppings at your dirt hole set or your flat set can just be the icing on the cake for that coyote. The one that maybe wouldn't walk into most standard sets, an intruder's dropping really can just seal the deal in a lot of cases and make that many more, foot placements around that set to urinate on it or whatever he wants to do, at that set because he knows, hey, somebody new's here, and I want to know who this is. So yeah, that's one of the big ones. As far as bait and lure, when it comes to coyotes, for the most part, I'm a big bait user. Coyotes can be caught on minute amounts of bait. Yes, I have good friends who catch lots of coyotes on minute amounts of bait. The guys I know that catch big volumes of coyotes in my opinion, myself included, use a lot of bait.
Okay.
Some of my buddies that are lure makers aren't going to like me for saying this, but and maybe they will if everybody goes out and buys their commercial bait, but I couldn't afford to buy their commercial bait because of the volume of bait that I actually use. I mean, if I'm using gallons of it, and they're going to sell a gallon of bait for $80 to $100 a lot of times, and so a lot of times I'm just using waste ground venison scrap, if it's legal, ground beaver meat, and if you wanted to take a pint of the good quality bait, the high-end good stuff of all these different good lure makers that are out there, and mix it in with that so you're getting more volume.
Right.
But to me, I prefer at a dirt hole set, I like a double the size of a golf ball at size of an orange, a wad of bait, and I put it on a big wad of sheep's wool. And I dig a hole that's 24 inches deep. I use an auger to dig a hole and dig a hole really deep so the coyote can't get to it. And then I layer my attractors in the hole if I'm using bait in a dirt hole set. So I'm going to take a big wad of sheep's wool, put it down in front of the hole. I'm going to take a big wad of bait. I'm going to put it on that sheep's wool. I'm going to jam it to the bottom of the hole. Then I'm going to take another wad of sheep's wool, and I'm going to take some type of a lure, which there's a lot of great lures out there, manufacturers. I was out west in New Mexico with Casey Payne Lures. He makes some fantastic baits and lures. We actually worked on a new bait when I was out there called Spur 'em Up that we smoked them on. And, just layering the attractors in the hole of the sheep's wool. And that was something that he didn't do before I got there, was layering the attractors and using larger amount of baits. He was a very small bait user, but after I left, I think I kind of got him turning the corner on using more bait than I'm like, you're a bait maker. Why aren't you using this stuff,
Yeah.
And I think I kind of got him on that because, really old school isn't really to use that kind of stuff. I guess maybe some of the old wolfers did. I mean, they were using whole groundhogs and, big hunks of venison and things like that down in the gopher hole, and they would catch coyotes that way. And that's kind of the same thinking to me, is I want as much scent and volume of scent on the air current as I possibly can get out of that hole, but I want it so deep that the coyote can't possibly get it out of the hole. And so he has to stay there and work at that hole and ultimately step in my trap, And then in that case, I think regardless if your trap is straight out in front of the hole, 9 back, off 3, 7 back, off 2, whatever all these things are, it doesn't really matter. In a set that's flat on the ground like that, I prefer a larger jaw spread trap for a coyote. So a 6.5-inch jaw spread trap with a larger pan. And what that'll allow me is a bigger kill area. So it's a larger spot on the ground that he can step and get caught. If I go to a smaller trap, the difference of half of what he has to step on to actually get caught. And that's really the only reason for the larger, not because the larger trap is needed to hold the animal, because there's a lot of really good 5-inch jaw spread traps out there that'll hold 90% of the coyotes get caught in them. It's just a matter of, you have a larger kill area and you put that out in front of that hole, it just cuts down on the places that the coyote could stand when he tries to get the bait out of that hole.
Okay. And are you using lure in the area around the hole?
Everything for me goes on a hole set. Everything goes in the hole. That's how I use it. A lot of guys will put lure on the lip of the hole, and I believe a lot of your two-step coyotes, they'll come in, you'll get a track on one side, he puts his nose on the lure, he's had enough, he steps over your trap and he walks away. It's because you put your lure out of the hole. So I want everything in the bottom of the hole. That's how I do it. Now on a flat set, it doesn't work that way. So you want something that he can't just grab and run off with in a flat set, my opinion, out of a flat set. I don't want an object that he can just walk up to, pick it up with his mouth and walk off with it and roll on it. Because a lot of the times when they're attracted to something, really seriously attracted to something, they don't want to eat it, they want to wear it, just like dogs do. Right. They want to put it on themselves. They want to rub on it, want to roll on it. A lot of times, if he can pick it up and walk 6 feet off with it and roll on it over there, he's going to. So I guess to get back to the initial of this, I think my philosophy on coyote trapping is their nose is so good, they know a human made that. And that's what I think about it. I think that you aren't as clean as you want to be. You have got to get the coyote to step in an area where he knows a human put a piece of bait down that hole, or he put a smear of this on that rock, and he's no longer here because I can smell him here. And he's gone, and now I'm going to come up sneaky-like, and I'm going to grab whatever he put there because I really like it. It's attractive to me, and I'm going to go over here and roll on it, or I want to get that out of that hole so I can roll on it or eat it or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So if you have an object in a flat set, I prefer it to be a fixed object. So if I'm using, and there's a lot of different names for it. It's basically a dowel rod with some sheep's wool glued to it that I drive into the ground, where he would actually have to break a 1/2-inch dowel rod to take the head away with me, with him. If he wants to put that lure on his neck or smell it or whatever, he's going to have to take it away, and he's going to have to break that dowel rod. So he's going to spend some time there to move that. If I'm going to use a chunk of wood, I want it large enough that he can't just, pick it up and take off with it. I don't want a pretty good size hunk, or a rock, or a tuft of grass is great because you can actually smear it all over the blades inside the tuft of grass, and he's not going to be able to just take that away. He's going to have to stay right there to work it. Kind of objects like that. They're not as specific as, how a hole set's made, where, you can force the animal with the angle of the hole to step in on one side or the other. They can come in from every angle, depending on the wind direction or whatever. So there's a little more luck involved in a flat set, I guess. And you'll have more misses, more hind foot catches in a flat set because your lure's up above the ground. But, that's some coyotes just flat. They're just so paranoid, they won't work a whole set. They'll walk up to it, make a track near it, and walk away. And a flat set's what you almost have to use. And that's where those droppings really come in. Just a drop or two of lure and a dropping there is just kind of simple and plain enough that he'll walk up to something like that. And the guys that do a lot of control work and they have to take individual coyotes, that's what Casey is an expert at, is catching those coyotes that are, goat killers or sheep killers or cat killers. And that coyote has to go. He's an expert at making those nice, really blended salient type flat sets that has to catch that one individual coyote. Where I don't do much of that, I do more fur trapping. So my sets are usually bigger and gaudier and, real kind of showy, I guess you would say. And because I'm just trying to catch all the dumb ones, and who cares about the smart ones, and let's move on to the next ranch.
Right. Yeah.
I want them because I want their fur. But if you're trapping an area where you're trying to control the population of coyotes and you want to take every individual that you possibly can out of there, you really need to get, good at flat sets also. Get good at using flat sets. And then back it up with snares, because coyote doesn't know what he doesn't know. He's walking down a trail, and next thing you know, he's got a noose around his neck. He's learned to snare. That's another really deadly for smart coyotes. Snaring is, if it's legal, get good at it. It's really, really effective.
Yeah. So on these coyotes, how do you know where to even go to put the trap? I mean, we're talking big woods.
Okay.
So
are we talking southeast?
Yeah. Well, if it's going to vary, let's talk about the different regions, because we have people from all over the country listening. So yeah,
because it varies. It really varies. I mean, depending on where you are and the type of cover here in Michigan, like when I'm fur trapping, I'm looking for barriers or long running features that connect large in my farm country area that I'm in. I like long running ditches that cut through big open areas. That's my preferred coyote trapping area, because what we get is a lot of dispersal, which in October, I get a lot of the young coyotes that are traveling from one large block of timber to another large block of timber as they're kicked out of their pack because they're looking for new territory. And then if I have tractor lanes that split those ditches, those are, hot spots. Okay, so that's really what number one thing that I would look for. If I have other farms that I know have coyotes, because deer hunters see coyotes there, they're saying there's coyotes around, and it's just a pack and they don't have a long running barrier, I'm going to look for sign. I'm going to get out of the truck and I'm going to drive around on a four-wheeler, whatever I have to do, look for tracks and look for droppings. If I find a concentration of tracks and droppings, usually then you're in a home core area of that pack of coyotes. So you're going to have a mated pair, male and female, and it may be a subordinate or two, and then a pups from that year. And then, but if you're on these long running barriers, you're going to have, I can catch coyotes, five or six coyotes, and I can continue to catch coyotes because more coyotes are moving in from new areas. I get into these farms that are near these long running barriers. If I catch 5 or 6 coyotes out of there, I'm done. I won't catch coyotes there until next spring, or maybe even next fall, till new coyotes filter into that area, for breeding purposes. Okay. So in the South, a lot of it is your timber. You like when we were at your place in Alabama there, you're looking at ridge tops are going to be more travel routes, and then exchanges from new cut timber to old growth timber. Those transitions, roadways that would separate those two, but a lot of it would be the ridge tops and the valleys that they'll use more in that hillier, more mountainous terrain. And then pinch points around in those areas. A lot of it is how you would cut a truck road through. And I know the place we hunted, a lot of the truck roads were cut on the tops of the ridges because that's the easiest pathway without going up and down through the valleys. Well, what's a coyote going to do? He's going to get on those truck roads if he's going to just disperse through that area, and he's just going to walk that ridge top down that truck road. And that's it. That would be a long dispersal route. And if you have a lot of fingers coming off that main ridge, it's just going to feed more coyotes from them packs off the sides of those bluffs into that main ridge, and then that main ridge where those intersecting fingers come in, that's your location in the south, more or less. In the west, now it works kind of. You're looking at the high spots in the southeast, which would be a prime location. In the west, where I was in New Mexico this year, it was really, they use the washes. So if you have a main wash that runs through a piece of ground, then it's just large flat prairie at the top and not a peak to it. A lot of what the coyotes will do is they'll walk in the washes, because there's generally not a lot of the creeks there don't have water or don't have much water. And so water is really huge. I mean, when I lived in Arizona for a while, when I trapped in Arizona, it was the same thing. I started trapping out there and wasn't catching a thing. And I talked to a buddy of mine, and he said, "Well, are you trapping around water?" And I said, "No." And he showed me, there's a tank here, there's a tank here, there's a seep here. These are the kind of things you need to be looking for. I sure enough went to these areas where there was a windmill and a tank, and when you pull in there, the quail start to fly, the rabbits are running, everything lives around the water. Yeah. Exactly, and that's where the coyotes are. Yeah. And so that's really what you look for in the West. I mean, we were sitting around windmills. You're dealing with cattle. That's everybody lives. Cattle is the lifeblood, in that area. So you got to be, if you're around the landowners and the ranchers out there and the dairy places, you got to be really respectful to the way they make their living. And it was a little new to me, trapping out there. Casey grew up out there, but understanding, how important the water was in the ranch land. When we got more into the farm country, we trapped around pivots a lot where they were watering, wheat crops or whatever for feed for the cattle. And then they would always, the larger cattle operations, the dairy operations, would have compost piles, because if you have 60,000 cattle on a place, you're going to have some die. And they're going to take those and put them in a compost pile till the dead truck comes and picks them up. And those coyotes know that those places exist. And, so those are the places you really look for around those larger dairies, was the places that they're composting their dead cattle, calves, or whatever it may be. And, that's where the coyotes will travel a long ways to get to those. Okay. But it was a pretty wet year out there this year, and there was a lot of quail, a lot of rabbits. They were not lacking food. I brought almost 80 coyotes back here to scrape and put up, and usually they're not really that difficult to put up. Even the ones I catch around here don't have that much fat on them. But man, I was not having fun scraping coyotes. Those ones, some of them had fat on them, like raccoon do, and raccoon have really thick fat if you're scraping the pelts to get them ready for auction. And there was a lot of work. So they were really, really healthy coyotes.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about bobcats quickly, because I don't know that there's a better hunter in the woods, period, than a cat. And I think it doesn't matter what continent you're on. They're just incredible hunters. Quick reflexes, great instinct, great eyesight, great sense of smell, great hearing. It's hard to find a flaw in a cat other than the fact that I'm allergic to them and I don't like them. So let's talk about the bobcats, because you were telling me earlier that coyotes are tougher to trap typically.
Yeah, they are. And I would say, we were saying, do you use the word intelligent? I don't know. It's just, I think a coyote is just more wary, and you can use a cat's natural inquisitiveness against him, and that's one thing. And he's not very he's not very, I guess you could say, trap shy. So you can actually use an exposed trap and catch a bobcat. He'll readily walk right on an exposed trap. If you make with a pan is a nice clean place for him to stand and he has no other place to walk, he has no problem walking right on a trap.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of Western trappers that'll just take like a piece of roofing shingle that's the same color matches the ground and put that on top of their pan. I've known really good trappers that will just sprinkle some of the sand on top of the pan. What that allows you to do is not have to bed your trap any type of material. So a lot of the snow and rain and freezing and thawing and all that kind of stuff really doesn't have an effect on your trap.
Right.
Because it's just basically sitting there in a hole, blocked in by sticks and rocks, where the cat would naturally travel. The other thing you can get them, to come in, their tendencies is just like a house cat would be, is to rub. They like to rub. So, smells like beaver castor, muskrat musk, things like that. They really are curious of those smells for rubbing. And then feathers, if it's legal. A lot of guys use Christmas tinsel. If that's I think it's legal just about everywhere because it's artificial. But if feathers are legal or wings are legal, those are good attractors. I mean, I'm sure you've seen a cat, something flutter in the wind, or a laser pointer or whatever. They're just inquisitive about it, every little thing, and you can kind of use that habit against them in trapping.
Yeah.
A lot of the same sets that you would use for a coyote, you can use it for bobcats. Again, it leads to kind of the style I trap. I use more of a bigger, gaudier kind of a set, something that kind of stands out, leads a little more to catching more bobcats than if you're doing the, really kind of blended type coyote sets that a lot of guys use. For control trapping, you're not going to catch as many coyotes or bobcats in a set like that as you would if you were, using more of a kind of a gaudy type set with a lot of attractor to it. Two holes instead of one hole, or
okay,
doing something like that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the same lures and baits work on coyotes as they do cats.
Okay.
I guess something to be said about cats is the breeding season, and where the toms will travel a lot farther distances. And that's this time of year, usually middle of January it starts and goes into the end of February is usually about the bulk of their breeding season. That's when a lot of guys will do their bobcat trapping, because then you can have a lot of those toms from outside areas kind of just travel into your area and you can catch them that way. And that's something else to be said. If you're just a fur trapper, they can be controlled. It takes a lot of work to control a coyote population. You got to really knock down the population. It takes a lot of work. They'll travel in. If you harvest a lot of bobcats in a specific area, it takes a little bit longer. They're not as prolific, I guess you say, as a coyote is. And you can really control the population of bobcats. I mean, one tomcat, traveling into your lease isn't going to create, havoc on the place. But if you have a whole, if you have females there and they have kittens and there's toms coming to them, and you have all those cats in there, watch out for your quail and turkey population. They're going to knock it down.
Yeah.
I mean, there's with that many mouths to feed, they're going to really be effective and they're going to knock it down. So, and if you can take some of those, younger cats and some of those females out, and you just happen to have a tom traveling through now and again, you're not going to have any problem with those predators really affect your birds. So that's something that really help your turkey and quail and pheasant populations by harvesting the bobcats and keeping that numbers in check.
Okay. Where are you setting those traps for bobcats? Same thing, travel routes, that kind of thing, as coyotes?
Yeah, they like thicker cover more, I would say. Especially the females and the younger cats, they're going to really be close to water sources, I think, really no matter where you're at. If you're in the southeast, I would stay down in the bottoms along the creeks more than I would on the ridge tops. Now, Not to say you're not going to catch a cat on a ridge top if you're in a 5-year-old pine cutover. That thick, dense pine, that's real. They like that kind of cover. The 5-year-old clear cuts, the same thing. Dense, thick, full of rabbits. Turkeys like to hide there. That's the place the cats are really effective hunters in.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of places. They like to travel in the bottoms more, along the creeks in the southeast. They do the same here in the north. They like the swamps. They like the cedar swamps in the northern part of Michigan. They travel cedar swamps in bottoms generally along waterways. When you get in the west, it's usually rim rock. What they'll travel in the west is you're looking for like bluff faces, the tops of bluffs, and then along bluff faces. And a lot of it is they're ambush predators. They need that, they need that cover to catch a deer or catch a turkey, or they're going to find a place where they can get above it on a limb or a broken, overhanging log or something, and they can sit and wait and then pounce on something. That kind of location, I guess. And then in those locations, I guess classic bobcat sets are more like taking a bunch of logs and building a cubby and forcing that cat to. One habit they do have, and Casey used this a lot when we were out there when he did make cat sets, is they'll stop in front of a fence. Like if you put a tractor in the back of a set, he'll go into like a cedar tree or cedar bush and cut an opening into that bush so there's a hole that kind of goes back in. He'd put his tractor in the back of that hole, whatever it would be, artificial tinsel and different whatever stuff he was using there. And then he would make take a stick and kind of put it across like as a stepping stick. But instead of putting his trap beyond the stepping stick, he'd put the trap just in front of the stepping stick. They have a habit of stepping just in front of something, even if he was going to stretch his neck out and smell that and not commit into the set. They have a habit of stepping just in front of something. I used more of what we call a walk-through set, which would be where you'd have an area where maybe two cedar bushes would pinch close together, maybe 4 feet apart along the top of a bluff or along a bluff face. And then I would take sticks and logs and I would pinch that bobcat into a really narrow area and then have like 2 cedar boughs that were shoulder height of the bobcat, and then just maybe a 6 or 8 inch wide gap between that brush that I would create between those bushes, and then place a trap, rocks around the trap, and get him to walk through that gap. That's why it's called a walk-through set.
Right.
And then I would usually use some type of a flag, 15 feet one side of it and 15 feet the other side of it, not right at the set. It's more of a blind set that I was using there. And if I was going to use any kind of a tractor or lure, I would use it on the opposite side of it. So if the cat walks up on this side and looks through that gap, he sees that flag over there and says, I want to walk over there and check that out. If he's going to walk that way, he's got to walk right over my trap to get that way. Kind of object. That set could be made in the southeast. It could be made in the west. It could be made north. It could be made anywhere. I know a lot of lynx trappers, Canadian lynx trappers, use that same concept. Cutways, they pinch it all in and they'll hang a snare. Same concept. And then they'll put their tractor in the back down the lane 25 feet.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Okay. Are you going to do anything different for foxes than you would coyotes?
Not really. It's just
smaller trap?
Smaller trap, yeah. I wouldn't use a 6.5 inch jaw spread trap. Depending on the year, here in Michigan where I live, we have about 50-50 foxes and coyotes, depending on the year. Some years I'll catch more coyotes than fox. Some years I'll catch more fox than coyote. And so I try to use a in-between trap. MB 550 is my trap of choice here. It's a wide jaw space, get virtually no damage on fox's feet. I get no damage on coyote's feet. I have no issue taking my bare hand and setting that trap and sticking my hand right in that trap. It does not hurt. I mean, doesn't leave a bruise on my fingers. It's designed. It's one of the best design traps. The more and more I use it, the more I realize how well it was originally designed. It just is a really good holding trap. I still, even in places in the West, I use it for coyotes. I mean, they're a great trap. They're very lightweight, easy to set, not really strong, so they're easy to set. And that's my trap of choice for fox/coyote. Or if I was even in Eastern Pennsylvania, Maryland, where those guys are setting, trapping lots and lots of fox, where there's only fox and not any coyote, that's the trap I would go to. The 550 it's a 5.5 inch jaw spread trap, so it's an inch smaller than the coyote trap I typically would use.
Yeah.
But again, hole, bait, lure, layer the attractor. They're nowhere near as difficult to catch as coyotes. They're not as wary. Usually when they start to work a set and they get a smell of something and they can't get to it, they're going to stay there till they get to it.
Okay.
There's sometimes coyotes will walk up, they'll do 2 kickbacks on the side of the set, they'll dig a little bit, they'll realize I can't get to that, and they'll walk away. Work your set from the back, or they'll do something different. Foxes, most of the time, if they get a smell of that, they're going to sit there and dig until they get that attractor out of that hole. They're just more persistent that way.
Okay.
So they're easier to catch in that case.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's talk quickly, because we're running long on time, and I'm not as concerned about that for me as I am you, because I don't think you've eaten dinner. And
I haven't.
yeah, and you've got a wife over there that's going to be mad at me when I see her here in a couple of weeks. So if I keep you from dinner much longer. So let's talk about dispatching these animals. And I know
Okay.
as far as what I'm doing, which is trying to control predators, I'm not as concerned about the hide, even though really there's no reason why I couldn't take those
Yeah.
hides and sell them. But I'm concerned about saving my turkeys. So
Yeah.
I know a 12 gauge, a 22, whatever is going to dispatch any of these animals perfectly
Right.
fine. That's not going to be an
Yeah.
issue. But
Yeah.
when I was talking to you the other day on the phone, I said, tell me where the brain is on a raccoon. So
Right.
just to keep me from having to look it up, because I'm not going to tell the story that I told you
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
show. It just wasn't very humane.
Yeah.
And you explained to
They're
me where a
tough.
brain is. They are tough, very
Yeah.
tough.
If
So,
they're facing you, in between their eyes, just a little above their eyebrow is where you want to shoot.
okay.
So that's where you're going to kill them the quickest. After we talked about that, that's the way I used to dispatch. I used to carry a little 22 handgun, a 22 rifle with me, and I used to dispatch everything with a CB short subsonic.
Mhm.
Sounds like a hand clap. It's a very nice thing I like about it is it's a quick and positive way. The drawback is blood. You have to deal with blood on the fur, blood at the set, blood on the pelt. That whole dealing with that's no fun. Cleaning that off. I have since, and it's just been in the last year, I've seen this poll. There's a new catch poll out. It's been out for a few years. The guy's name's Lee Steinmeier. I hope Lee don't mind me you plugging his product.
Probably not.
But it is a very effective product. It's called a Death Ray. It is a catch pole with a caulk gun handle. So you hear Death Ray and you think I'm going to electrocute him, but it's not. It's a catch pole with a caulk gun handle. It's just a very well built product. One thing you do have to watch for is the cable can kink up on you if they get it in their mouth and chew on it because of the type of cable he's using. But that type of cable is needed to dispatch the animal this way. You just take the poles, put it over the animal's neck like a regular catch pole, pull it tight. You do this with a raccoon, do it with a coyote. You can do it very effective on a bobcat because their veins are very high on their neck. It's the only way to kill a bobcat. Cinch the pole down, give the handle a few caulks. It chokes them down like a snare around their neck. They very quickly pass out, and because of blood loss to the brain, they pass out. You can take them out of the trap, slide them to the side of the set. As they expire, there's no blood at the set. It's a really great way. So I used that for a year. Took that method to New Mexico when I was trapping with Casey this year, and started out using my pole. But then I quickly realized when you go and you catch a double on coyotes, now I've got one pole, and the numbers we were catching out there, it takes a little while for them to actually expire completely with that. If you release it from them, they can come back.
Right.
So I catch it. We get a double. I catch one coyote, put him down with the death ray, put him in the back of the truck with the pole still on him. Get the other coyote with his death ray. We go down the road, and there's a third one. And I'm thinking, okay, this is pretty quick. And Casey's like, those poles are great, but let me show you something. He takes an axe handle out. Obviously, he's killed thousands and thousands of coyotes with this axe handle. When he walks up to the coyote and taps him in the tip of the nose, the coyote just kind of stuns him a little bit. He lays over on his side. He stretches the coyote out a little bit as he's stunned. He gives him a really nice, really clean, sharp strike right across the middle of the throat where his arteries would be high in his neck, whatever you call those arteries there high in the neck. And the coyote immediately flares out, stiffens right up, and expires in seconds. Where you can see when he expires, just reach down, touch his eye, he doesn't blink, he's expired. And I'm looking at him like, there's not a drop of blood. And he takes the coyote out of the trap, and I'm remaking the set, and I'm thinking, wow, that was pretty amazing. Next set we go to, he does the same thing. And I'm thinking, I'm going to try this. So I tap the coyote, dunk him in the neck. I'm thinking, I don't think I'll ever dispatch a coyote any other way. No, until somebody shows me a better method. But what it effectively does from talking to him is it actually gives the coyote a stroke. You burst the blood vessels in his neck and those arteries, and it sends a shot of blood to his brain. It gives him a blood clot to his brain, and it gives him a stroke. And they're out in seconds. It's very humane. It's quick and no blood. You can tell when you skin them. There's big blood clots in their right on their veins in their throat. You got to be really precise with your strike at his throat.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it might take a hit or two, but once you get it down, I started using my stake driver to do it, later in the trip. And with the skinnier stake driver, I think was actually even maybe a little more effective than his wide axe handle, just because of the way it struck and burst the veins there in his neck. And then when you skin the coyote, there's no blood. It was a really effective way of dispatching the coyotes and really humane. I mean, I was really pleased with that it puts them down quickly and they don't, and it's very positive too. Like it would be if you shot them in the head. It's basically doing the same thing, but just doing it internally.
Right. And you recommend a catch pole for bobcats because they do suffocate or choke out so easily.
They choke out really easily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And even on the raccoons, I haven't tried the throat hit method on a raccoon. I know other trappers that catch lots and lots of raccoons, and they have talked to me about other methods. I haven't seen it firsthand, so I can't speak exactly, but they're doing a method where they hit them in the heart with the stick, and they give the raccoon a heart attack, and it kind of does the same thing. But I know the death ray pole works fantastic on raccoons, and it puts a raccoon down in seconds, just like a fox. Most of the time with the foxes this year, I didn't even have to tap them in the nose. I just put the catch pole over their head and didn't even have to tap them. They usually just pull straight away from you anyways. And when you get over to them, you just loop it over their head and pull it tight and caulk it down. And within 5 seconds, you're making your set. And the fox is laying limp on the side of the catch circle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's real effective methods. So I would, I don't know what Lee, if he has a website or anything like that, but I'm sure you can, search it online and find that death ray pole.
Yeah. Okay. We'll check that out. And I will tell you, this is just one time, so very, very limited experience or trial at this. But that's after you and I talked, and you told me about hitting the coyote in the neck with the axe handle. That's what we did to the raccoon today, and he bled like crazy
did he?
out of his nose. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's you may
different animal.
Yeah, and you may try it and not have the same result that I had, but there was a lot of blood.
Okay. Oh. Okay.
So tell me, obviously blood on the traps is no good.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world as long as if your trap's bedded solid and you got good bait, volume of bait in your hole, or a good attractor and your trap's bedded solid, it's not bad. Because typically, if there's a little bit of blood on your trap, I carry a wire brush in my bag. I every time I'm doing a remake, I go through my trap and I scrub my trap down. If there's blood or anything like that on that, I'm going to clean that off. So I getting all that blood and stuff off of the trap, and then going ahead and rebedding it. But as far as the traps that I used from the beginning of the season this year, they were used in New Mexico, and I'm going to Texas in March to do predator control. And those traps, I waxed them in October, early October, and those are the same traps I'm using. I didn't really do nothing else to them other than I didn't do anything to them in New Mexico. I power washed them here before I left at the power wash. They're going to get power washed one more time before they go into totes and go to Texas and get used. I don't really, I'm not, the wax is to protect the trap. Again, I really believe that they know, a coyote knows, and that's the animal you're going to, if it comes to scent that you really need to trick, they know a human made the set. They don't think something else made it.
Right.
That's how I look at it. I think if you use that mindset, they're trying to steal something from a person. Just like if they got in your garbage can and they grabbed something and took off. Some are more brazen, some aren't brazen. Some are going to walk up to a set like that and walk away. They know you've been there. That's something that I'm pretty sure of.
Yeah.
That they know a human made that, and that's why I kind of leave you with this too, is a lot of really good ADC guys that have worked places, the Western coyote guys that work in counties or they work in certain regions. Those coyotes know that person, that individual. He could have a friend come in and make a new set on a tough to catch coyote and most likely catch that coyote in the first night or two because it's a new smell.
Sure.
So they that coyote knows that person. It's no different than with me here on my trap line. I've trapped coyotes here in this area for years, and I'm sure if I brought another trapper that was versed at bedding the trap solid and using good lures and baits, and I brought them along on my line, they're going to most likely catch more coyotes than I am on my line. because even if our sets are side by side in the same location in the same kind of set,
Mm-hmm.
because those coyotes know me there. They don't know whoever else I'm bringing with me on this line.
Yeah.
You know, and that just plays into how well these critters can smell. I mean, they know the difference between one person and another person. You know, they know the dog smell on your shoes.
Yeah.
You know, if you've been to somebody else's house and petted their dog, you come home to your dog and your dog knows it.
Oh yeah.
And coyotes are no different. You kneel at a set, you wear leather boots at your set instead of rubber boots. The coyote knows. He knows where you've been, if you have a dog at home, if you don't have a dog at home, if you have a cat at home. Those coyotes know all that stuff when you walk away from that set.
Yeah.
So
yeah, makes complete sense, and it's something I had never really thought about. But you're right. I mean, they're so good with their noses. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome, man. I have picture brain and picture brain and picture brain this evening, and I hope that I've left you something to get through the night with, some brains to get through the night with. I know you got a lot up there, so greatly appreciated. And as you can tell, I've got tons of questions, and I've got even more questions. I'm just not gonna keep you on the phone any longer because we're rolling up on 2 hours, and I want to get you back to your night.
Man,
so.
I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah.
Get me talking about trapping, and there it goes.
Well, and you know, it's just there's so many ways to do it and be successful at it, and there's so many different critters you can try to trap, and there's so many different ways to dispatch them. There's so many different baits to use, blah, 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 on and on and on, that I really think you and I could talk for 24 hours about trapping and still not cover everything.
Oh, yeah. There's full podcasts on trapping that have been going on for years, and they still haven't touched all the subjects. I mean, there's just no way you can hit everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something I love, and I mean, we're only talking about, basically predator control. We're not talking about muskrats and beavers and otters and, all the specifics that go into fur trapping and then putting up fur and all the other things that go along with it.
Yeah.
So it's never ending. I love to learn. I learn every year. I always think if I'm not changing something, I'm not learning. So I need to keep learning and trapping with new guys and learning new things. And I just love going out and one of my things helping my wife is doing emceeing the demos. And I've just picked up so much information over the last 4 years that we've done this, getting to mic up these pro trappers and expert trappers from all over the country, really all over the world, guys from Australia and Canada and everywhere else, and pick their brain about all their different techniques that guys use. And, it's just been a pretty awesome experience being able to learn from all these guys for these years. And
absolutely.
Never keep, and never think I even come close to, knowing it all. That's for sure.
Man, I mean, you think back to what the wild west may have been, or really just this whole country was like before it really became developed over the past 150 years, and think back to these frontiersmen and the knowledge that they probably took to their grave about trapping that we may never know.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
It was a lot of really close held secrets then. There a lot of that information is really public now. I mean, it's a lot more available. The really good information, the true information, is a lot more public now. A lot of people are making it more public because they have businesses built around it too, lure and bait companies and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I will give a shameless plug here. I guess we talk about that. Casey and I, when we were in New Mexico, we actually put together are working on now putting together a video of a coyote trapping video, long lining the high plains, and that will be available in April from Minnesota Trapline Products. They're partnering with us on the project, and so if anybody is interested in the stuff that I talked about, and then a lot more that we're going to have in a right around a 2-hour video, you'll be able to get that from Minnesota Trapline Products this spring, and it'll be available. So
awesome. So, do you know the website right off the top of your head?
I don't, but if you Google it's MTP. If you Google Minnesota Trapline Products, it will come up.
Okay.
And then Payne Lures, Casey Payne, they're I think the exclusive distributor for his lures and baits, and they'll have our video, the producer on the video, and we've got a good friend editing it right now. He's working on it starting this week, and so
great.
We're putting that together.
That's cool stuff. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
So tell me about the National Trappers Association quickly and what you guys do. And then do you know the booth number for the NWTF show?
I don't. We moved. We're on the other side. I think one booth closer to one row closer to the back. I
Okay.
do not know our booth number. I think we're over and around where all the call makers are, or the call guys are now.
Okay.
We were over in the outfitter section last year, and I think we moved over one. I think they get a little more traffic over that way. Had some booths available, so
Okay.
we will be there. And the National Trappers Association, we defend trappers' rights all across the nation, and with our working with our affiliate state associations. We have, just like the NWTF, but the trappers, our rights are regularly under attack, and so there's a lot more work to do when it comes to reaching out, getting membership. But we have to have on-staff attorneys fighting in not only in the states that they're trying to take away our rights regularly. I know California last year just lost bobcat trapping just from some simple, silly snafus that happened in government. The biologists weren't very happy that they outlawed. It wasn't based on sound science.
Right.
Put it that way. They just outlawed it because they didn't want guys trapping around some federal areas. Now I think they have a new initiative the Antis do against Humane Society of the United States has against large cats, mountain lions, and bobcats in Arizona. It's a new one they picked up that we're fighting, but it's all over the country, and it's a nonstop thing. And if you're not involved in the NTA and you don't get the publication, the magazine, you don't realize the work that goes into just inside the state organizations. I actually had the opportunity to write a law to go on the books here just recently because of things that I'm not going to get into detail through my local association in Michigan. Over Antis threatening to sue us and attack us here in Michigan. So we had to change the regulations to appease them. And it's just a nonstop thing. And if you're not involved, you don't understand that. You don't see that we're so close to losing our rights as trappers, as fur trappers. Now, I try to talk to these guys, a lot of guys on a regular basis that aren't involved and don't see what's going on, that they just want to kind of sweep it under the rug. Oh, there's always going to be trapping. Well, not necessarily, and I honestly believe in the states that have lost trapping. I mean, there are states in the United States where foothold traps are illegal, body grip traps are illegal, and you can only use cage traps. Arizona public land, Colorado public land, places you wouldn't think they're Wild West places, and they just, they don't allow trapping. They don't allow management of the resource. So if you had problems with animals, you have to call an ADC guy in to come in. And that's what it would turn into. Without the NTA, without the state associations, we'll all just be ADC guys, and then you're going to have to hire somebody to come in that's licensed, and you can't just go out and do it yourself and manage your property. You're going to have to hire a licensed control person to come in and control the raccoon population that's getting out of control, or the coyote population that's getting out of control. And we as trappers don't want to see that happen. We want to be able to take care of it ourselves. We want to be able to go out if the beavers around here are damming and flooding the road. They can call a trapper, and beavers may only be worth $10, but there's still a trapper that enjoys to do it. Will go over there, catch the beavers for $10, make use of the meat, make use of the glands, make use of the fur, take out the dam, and there's no more problem at no cost to the state. Where if we lose our rights, the state's got to pay an ADC guy, or they have to have a person on staff that they have to pay that comes out of your tax dollars. And if we're not regularly fighting these initiatives by, the Antis, they slowly whittle away at our rights, and we do lose ground every year. We lose ground every year.
Yeah.
And I don't think guys really realize, and they ask me, well, what did the NTA do for me? And I said, well, we're fighting, but we're losing. We need help. We need every person we can. We need every membership dollar we can.
Yeah.
And partnering with NWTF's been a huge help. They're really, I think realizing that this conservation and management of the natural resource from the bottom to the top of all the animals is so important for the turkey, and that our relationship with NWTF and the NTA has been really important.
Yeah.
And I think people are starting to realize how important it is.
Yeah. What are the annual dues for joining NTA?
It's $35, and you get 6 issues of the American Trapper. I think we have discounts if you get a 3-year membership.
Yeah. We can join online?
Yep, NTA Just National Trappers Association. I'm not sure the website, but
yeah, Google National Trappers Association.
Yeah, you get to that.
Very cool. I need to go join tonight.
Yeah, that'd be great.
No reason not to.
Come see it. Come see us at our booth. We'll sign you up.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to come see you at your booth anyway. But when I come over there, instead of us just talking and shooting the breeze, I'm going to make you work, and I'll make you sign me up. I can't make you
we'll
do anything,
that.
but I'll get you to sign me up.
We'll do that. We'll do that.
That'll be cool. Awesome. Well, I hope that people listening, it's a small amount of money, and I hope that they will join, because we do all have to stick together. And even if you're not a trapper, even if you're like Andy Galliano and just want to do it casually to help your turkey population out, or even if you have no interest in it at all, we need to understand that controlling predators, it benefits everything that we do as hunters. And so we need to help those out who are interested in doing it and protect their rights to do it. And really is protect all of our rights for everything, because they're getting infringed on all across the board, no matter what it is, whether it's hunting related or trapping related or what it happens to be. So, all right, I'm off my political soapbox because I don't really want to be on it, and I am going to tell you, thank you very much, sir. I really do appreciate it. I really do look forward to seeing you here in a couple of weeks at the NWTF show. Tell Tammy, your lovely bride, I said hello, and I look forward to seeing her as well, and I'll catch you soon.
Tell Tammy we said hello too, and we will see her in Nashville.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it. Have a great night,
okay,
Trent.
buddy.
Thank you.
You too.
All right.
Yep.
Goodbye.
All right, I hope that you guys enjoyed that interview with Trent. I really want to start trapping some of these larger predators. You know, I've been trapping the small predators off and on for years. But after talking with Trent about trapping several times, I think I've got a pretty good foundation to start with these bigger predators. So I am going to get some traps and give it a whirl this year. So that's all that I've got for you guys this week. And I have to tell you that I am really fired up about bringing you some interviews from the NWTF convention this coming weekend. I really want to up the game a bit with this year's Turkey Palooza, and I think that you're not going to want to miss the next couple of episodes, especially those of you who are listening who are relatively new to the sport. So if you've been turkey hunting for less than, I'd say 7 or 8 years, 8 or 10 years, then these next couple of episodes, I think, are going to turn out really, really good. Okay, so if you're a more experienced hunter, do not worry, because there's going to be some awesome content for us old-timers as well. Most likely, there's going to be a lot of things that we can pick up from these upcoming shows. I'm talking about these upcoming shows like I've got them recorded, but I just know that this is going to turn out really well, and that we're going to have some awesome content from it. I'm really excited about it. So before I let you go this week, please remember my ginormous favor from last week, because that is my ginormous favor for this week. And that is, number one, if you're going to the show in Nashville and you see some of the personalities who have been on this show, like Brenda Valentine, Harold Knight, Tom Kelly, Jimmy Primos, Cuz Strickland, Preston Pittman, Eddie Salter, Chris Parrish, the list goes on and on and on. When you see those men and women, please do not forget to tell them thank you for coming on the show. Let them know that you heard them on this show and that you really appreciate them sharing information with us. All right, so I don't know where every single one of these guys are going to be, but I do know where some of them are going to be. So if you're going to the convention, grab a pen and a paper real quick, write this down, stick it in your pocket, and when you're walking around the exhibit hall, stop at the booths for these companies where these guys are going to be and thank them for coming on the show. So Mitchell Johnston, who owns Dead End Game Calls, he was on episode 73, Dissecting a Diaphragm Call. Mitchell is going to be at booth 1244. Harold Knight and Chris Parrish with Night and Hell Game Calls, they're going to be at booth 1429. Harold was on episode 7 where we talked about public land hunting. Chris Parrish was on episode 31 and episode 78 where we talked about turkey calling. Cuz Strickland with Mossy Oak, he was on episode 29 where we talked about patterns and habits of wild turkeys. And Cuz is going to be at booth number 401, 501, and 502. They have multiple booths there at the show. Trent Masterson, who you've just heard in this interview with the National Trappers Association, is going to be at booth number 1929. He was also on episode 6, where we talked about trapping as well. Preston Pittman, who you guys heard a couple of weeks ago, he's on episode 35, episode 74, and episode 119. He's going to be at booth number 1629 and 1641, which is an end cap. So it's the same booth, it just takes up 2 spots on the end of a row. Jimmy Primos with Primos. I had him on to talk about turkey hunting with decoys. He is going to be at booth number 1101. Tom Kelly, who was on episode 3, he's going to be at booth 2162. Eddie Salter with Flextone, he was on episode 30 and episode 66, where we talked about different hunting scenarios and how he would approach those scenarios. He's going to be at booth 201. Steve Hickoff is going to be there. I don't know of a booth that Steve's going to be at. And Steve's been on a couple of shows where we've talked about fall turkey hunting. Josh Carney's going to be there, and you'll be able to recognize Josh because he is a handsome, strapping young lad in a wheelchair, but mainly you're going to be able to recognize him because he's going to be the one honking like a goose, gobbling like a turkey, and yelping like a turkey with his natural voice, so you'll be able to pick him out pretty easily. JT Burns going to be there, and I think JT and Steve are going to be doing another seminar this year about turkey dogs. I'm not 100% on that, and if they are, that's one you want to go check out. That's a great seminar, and you can meet both Steve and JT there and thank them for coming on the show. Somebody you're probably not going to recognize, but if you happen to see him and catch the name on the name tag, is Pete Muller with the NWTF. We've had him on episode 65 and 116 just as kind of a preview show for the NWTF convention. And then, of course, Jeff Buds is going to be there. And Jeff is with Tag It Worldwide. And Jeff's booth number is number 923. And if you remember, Jeff was on episode 86. So those are some of the people that you'll be able to find at the show. And I really do appreciate you guys making an effort when you get to those booths to find those guys and thank them for coming on the show. All right, so the second part of the ginormous favor is this. When you are there and you're roaming around the show and you see someone that you would like to hear come on the show and share information with us, tell them that you would really like to hear them on the Turkey Hunter podcast. Give them my email address and ask them to hit me up. I'll do everything I can to get them on the show and bring you some great content from them as well. Lastly, when you get to the show, email me, andy@iamturkeyhunting.com, and we will do our best to meet up. I would love to shake your hand and thank you personally for listening to the show. If you're on Twitter, then PM me on Twitter. Let me know that you're there. Be a little bit patient with me because I'm going to be in and out of seminars. I'm going to be in and out of the calling contest. I'm going to be doing interviews. I'm going to be very busy while I'm there, but I will make every effort to meet you if you reach out to me. That's all that I've got for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know that you have choices, and I appreciate you spending your time with us. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Goodbye. Thanks for tuning in. You were just listening to the Turkey Hunter podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please go on over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review. And make sure to head over to www.iamturkeyhunting.com to subscribe for free turkey hunting tips, tactics, strategies, and product reviews to help you have a more successful turkey season. And stay tuned for upcoming episodes on hunting afternoon birds, how to film your hunt, and the breeding cycle of hens, as well as some guest interviews. Thanks again for listening. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you sharing some of it with us. See you next week.